Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. On this podcast, Laura
and Shelby, both board-certified nurse coaches, show you how to make as much money as you want in private practice as a nurse coach.
Hello. Welcome to the Successful Nurse podcast. Today is going to be a solo episode with me, Laura, and I'm going to share my story. I'm going to give you just some background about me and share my journey into nurse coaching and how I've arrived at the point I am now, and really let you get to know me and share some of my why and my story. I hope this lands. I hope this gives you guys some context to why Shelby and I do what we do. So I became a nurse in 2012. It was my second career. And what's interesting is I had been laid off from the construction industry. I was a project manager for a new home construction company, making decent money. And I was laid off in 2009 during the recession. And I suddenly found myself unable to find a job for more than like $20 an hour. And I did not have a degree. I had my associates, and I had just been making great money in the construction industry and didn't think I would ever have to change. I really liked that industry. It was fun. It was problem solving. I loved who I worked with. So I was super bummed when I got laid off. And I remember thinking, okay, what am I going to do with my life? What do I want to be when I grow up? And I was in my 30s, or I was very close to my 30s. And I'm sitting there having that talk with myself, like, what do I really like to do? So I went back into my multiple different jobs that I had experienced from teenager till that point. And my favorite job was being a personal trainer. And I had been a personal trainer at 24 Hour Fitness and had done some dietary counseling in that role. And I had a client, I'll never forget her. She was 25. She was 5'1", and she was probably like 260, 280. And she hired me very vulnerably. She hired me to help her. And I think she lost 60 pounds in our time together. And I cherished that client. I cherished that journey. I loved that role, the role of empowering somebody, the role of pushing somebody, the role of supporting somebody and becoming somebody different. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so my brain said, aha, it must be diet. So I was going to become a registered dietitian. So I went back to school and was getting all my prereqs done and really leaning into becoming a dietitian when I started looking at the actual role of a dietitian. And it actually wasn't great. The pay wasn't great. You didn't have a lot of autonomy. It was difficult to have a private practice. I interviewed some RDs in private practice. And my sister was in nursing school at the time, or had just graduated. And I remember calling her and saying, hey, I think I might want to be a nurse. Do you think I could do that? And she laughed and she's like, I was waiting for you to look into that, because the prereqs were the same. So I switched to nursing really halfway through because of the job possibility, not because of the passion that I had to help people. It was more of I had already started and I needed a really good job. And nurses made great money. I lived in California. It was a great career. I also was still under the impression that I would really get to spend time with patients and help them, and that maybe I'd get to do some, for now, what I see, coaching in that role. And very quickly, that wasn't my experience. So I went to nursing school, a private nursing school, to hurry up and graduate. I graduated in 2012. And I went right into the ICU as a new grad, which was exhilarating and exciting, and I was good, but it was hard, and the hours weren't great, and I became pregnant my first year in the ICU. And I remember going out on maternity leave early and just not wanting to go back, not because I hated it so much, but because I didn't know how I could be a mom well of a newborn and be an ICU nurse at the same time. The hour commute, the 12-hour shifts, breastfeeding, no sleep. It just wasn't possible. So I switched to surgical nursing, PACU nursing, and my last role as a nurse was as a advice nurse for Kaiser. I'm so grateful for that role because I had my own health awakening, and my health journey happened to me while I was transitioning into that role. And had I been in any other part of nursing, it probably wouldn't have impacted me as much. So after the birth of my son, I began having health problems, lots of health problems. I had a spinal, and he was breached, so I had to have a C-section, and I had a spinal, and they missed the spinal 5 times. The anesthesiologist, having this unplanned C-section because his fluid was low, and it was excruciating. Every time that he injected me, he hit a nerve, and my left foot would burn, like the worst pain, nauseating pain, over and over again. And after that, I started having nerve pain in that foot, and I started having other symptoms. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with brachial neuritis, which I found out later was actually an injury from a flu shot, which is a different part of my story. I was 34, and I think I was on 12 or 13 medications. I was on medications for the side effect of medications. I was in pain every single day. I was taking Norco, very low dose, but regularly. That was the only thing that I found that would give me a little bit of relief. I had back-to-back pregnancies. My daughter was born 13 months after my son was born, and I started to get really worried about my quality of life. I had such bad fatigue, such bad pain, could not sleep. And I remember at the end of this 3-year health journey, I had moved and I had gone to a new primary care physician, and she never looked at me. She just read my chart. And I could tell that she had judged me by my chart, which my chart was insane. I had seen everybody. I had seen psych. I had seen ortho. I had seen neurology. I had seen different primary care providers. I had seen podiatry. They threw the kitchen sink at me. I did everything I possibly could to get well. I just didn't know that that wasn't the right place or right system to get well. I didn't realize that nobody was really interested in finding out why I was experiencing the symptoms. They wanted to, in their 15-minute appointment, give me a pill and shut me up. So this woman, I brought my sister with me, who's an badass ER nurse. I brought her with me to be moral support because I knew that my chart looked crazy. And I explained, this is where I'm at. I really want to get, I wanted her to look at my gallbladder because I was having such bad back pain. There's all sorts of things I wanted to do. And she basically said, this is functional pain and this is all in your head, and you're on too many medications, and we're taking you off any of your pain medications, and you just need to go to psych. Basically, I've washed my hands of you. I'm taking away the one medication that has brought you relief, and I'm not interested in finding a solution for you. And I just remember crying and realizing, driving home from that appointment, realizing that if I wanted to live a long, healthy life, I was going to have to figure out how to heal on my own. Kaiser or my doctors weren't going to help me. So I found a naturopathic doctor, and in 16 weeks after seeing her, I was off all of my medications. I was off no more asthma, no more inhaler, no more pain, no more sleep problems, no more anxiety, no more depression. I began to lose weight effortlessly. Everything, the pain in my foot was gone. All of it got better, and I was blown away. I could not believe that there was this other kind of medicine that could really, really heal people that no one was aware of. At the same time, we move, and my daughter suddenly lost the ability to walk. It was the scariest moment of my life. Her right side of her body just started collapsing. She started falling down. And before that, she was running. She was 20 months old. She started walking at 10 months. She had been walking for 10 months. She was running at that point. And she was having spells of not being able to walk. She was having spells of where she was staring off into the distance and kind of unresponsive. And we took her to the ER. I'm mentioning this because it's just a really important part of my story, and anyone who follows me on social media will be aware of it. And I'm really passionate about this part of my story. We were in and out of the ER, in and out of neurology. We were just about to do an MRI to put her under general anesthetic and give her an MRI to look for a brain tumor. When it subsided. And so I didn't want to put her under general and that risk at 20 months old and do an MRI because it seemed to have stopped. So the doctor said it must have been an inner ear infection, even though she had no infection markers and no ear pain. And it didn't make sense to me, but at the time I was just grateful that she seemed to be doing okay. Later on, I watched a documentary about vaccines. And I had been led to this documentary through other documentaries that I had been watching on this more natural health journeys. This was the first time that this topic had ever been introduced to me. I'm watching this documentary. They're saying things I didn't know, like that vaccine manufacturers cannot be sued, that the vaccines are only tested for 5 days for safety, that they have high levels of aluminum in them, that they aren't safe for everybody. And I began to put 2 and 2 together in my brain. I ran back, grabbed my phone, looked at I had this episode with my daughter, this awful episode with my daughter, and when it had started, and it was directly following routine vaccination. So through my naturopathic doctor testing me genetically for certain detox mutations that I have, we tested my daughter. She has the same ones. And it's very common for this specific gene mutation to have a difficult time with certain toxins, including aluminum. My entire paradigm around health began to crumble. And at this time, I was an advice nurse with doing recorded calls with clients timed. And I was having women call in with symptoms very similar to mine. And I would have been fired had I given them the advice that I knew would help them. I was also having lots of vaccine injury calls that I was not allowed to put the dots together for the patient and for the parent. And I think that God gave me a lot of those calls in a short amount of time to push me out the door into what I'm doing now. I really, truly do. But I was driving home from work one day, a shift as a call nurse, and I told my husband, I can't go back. I can't do this job. I cannot be in integrity and say the things I'm required to say because I do not believe that they're true. And that began an intense spiritual awakening. It became a deconstruction of what I thought medicine was and what it actually is. And that continues to deconstruct and change. I'm super convicted in my beliefs, but very unattached to them specifically because I think that science is always changing and that I'm always changing. And so I feel strongly about what I feel strongly about, but I also am humble enough to know that it could change and to honor where everybody is on their own journey. At that time, I had been looking into nurse coaching, and I have the most beautiful story about Heather Lapidus. Heather Lapidus is one of the co-founders of the Nurse Coach Collective. Shelby and I talk about it a lot. We went through that certification. We freaking love that certification. We think it's an amazing cert and beautiful path forward. So I'm going to give that shameless plug here. But at that time, Heather and Peter had just started their certification, and Heather had reached out to me and told me more about nurse coaching. And I think I missed my first application call, and we rescheduled and had our second application call. And within 30 minutes of Heather describing to me what nurse coaching was, I knew it was exactly what I was meant to do. I got to help people the way that I wanted to help them. I didn't have to leave my $100,000 nursing education and background and degree and license behind. I could leverage that, and I jumped in. I jumped in with both feet. I had quit my job really while I was in that certification. So I had the passion and the space to focus on it fully. The same time I quit, I had another appointment with my naturopathic doctor, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you quit?" And I said, "Yeah, I had to walk away and I'm going to open my own practice." And she said, "Well, would you want to work here? I need help. We're so busy." So I got to be her personal assistant, her naturopathic assistant for 2 years, see all of her new patients, learn from her, be in the office. So valuable. Those 2 years really changed me. I built a thriving health coaching practice, it took me a few years, but I had done it. I had reached my capacity. And once I reached my capacity and I couldn't help any more people, right? Like I couldn't do any more coaching. I had a full schedule. I couldn't do more. My impact had stopped, and I wanted to impact more. And that's when I started reaching out to other nurse coaches who weren't having the success and the ability to connect with clients, and offered to help them. Shelby and I joined forces, and we held our first group coaching 8-week program just to help our classmates who were flailing not flail. Because if you're certified and you're an amazing nurse coach, and then you don't learn how to turn it into a business, a healthy, thriving business, then you're going to quit. And then what's it all for? So I maintained a private practice for many years, 2 years, alongside of the Successful Nurse Coaches programs. And then there came a point where I realized that I was holding on to my private practice because I didn't want to be a coach that only coached coaches. I had this fear of being judged for it. And really, that really wasn't fair for my business coaching clients because I hadn't gone all in. And there came a moment when I realized that my role is not to health coach everybody. My role is to empower thousands and thousands and thousands of nurses to successfully do this too. And I was good at it, and I am good at it. And as soon as I stepped into that role and to really owning that, it felt so good, right? It felt so good to be in alignment to help nurse coaches create thriving, healthy coaching practices. I have so many medical freedom nurses because I'm public about my view on vaccines not being a one-size-fit-all product that reach out to me and they're losing their jobs. And I'm like so excited because I have a path for them. Like I walked it. There is a way, not a way that I've imagined, a way that I've walked hundreds of nurse coaches through. So I know that me going all in on this business was meant for this time where we have really, really good, holistically minded nurses being forced out of the careers that they love, or maybe they don't love, but the careers that have proved that they went to school for, that provided for them, they are not welcome in that system anymore. And I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's forcing a lot of nurses to create other ways for their patients to heal. That's kind of my story in a nutshell on how I got here. I have a website called Freedom is Good Medicine. So www.freedomisgoodmedicine.com that has my vaccine story on it with my daughter, what I've learned after 2 years of research. And you're welcome to check that out. I have a Medical Nurses Freedom Project where you get a lot of firsthand stories of other nurses who feel like me. And this is not to sway anybody in this decision. It's a very personal decision, but it's part of who I am. And I'm very open about it. I'm very passionate about people having the choice on how to take care of their own health. And I don't stay away from controversy. When I became public about this particular controversial subject, this is pre-COVID, I had to learn to be hated. I had my license threatened. I had really threatening messages and emails come. I had friends and family members think I was nuts. I was called names. And while that was painful, it also taught me to not care, because my truth is my truth. Who I am is who I am. And I know not everybody will like me, and I don't want them to, because there's plenty of people that my story will be in resonance with. And if my story helps one other mother not feel the regret that I do, then it's worth it. So this controversial topic and this thing that happened in my life happened for me. I want to report that my daughter Adeline is doing so good now. No lasting effects that we can see. We've done a lot of detox and supportive measures with diet and supplements. So I'm very, very grateful. I have lots and lots and lots of mama friends whose children did not end up fine, from death to severe brain injury to severe seizure disorders to autism to ADD to crazy food allergies. It's all connected, right? So I'm very, very lucky, and I just wanted to report that here. I talk about my first year in business a lot with my clients, on sales calls, and I'm sure even on different podcast episodes. But first year as an entrepreneur for me was painful. It was harder than my first year in the ICU. And even though I didn't have lives in my hands, and I didn't have that kind of stress, I had the stress of my own thoughts. I had done several failed MLMs in the past. My belief was that I sucked at sales, I was an introvert, and this wasn't going to work. And if I failed before, I'm probably going to fail again. So everything I did was painful, y'all. Like, so painful. Yes, I talked to clients. Yes, I created clients. It's not that things didn't work, but it was so hard. I wanted to quit so many times. And until I hired my first business coach, that didn't get easier. And it was experiencing the difference of trying to do it on my own and then experiencing what happened in that 6-month container with my business coach. It was just like, why didn't I do this day one? Why did I try to do this alone at all? But you don't know what you don't know. And that's part of the reason why Shelby and I created our programs is we don't think nurse coaches should do this alone. We don't think you deserve to do this alone. We don't think you should suffer doing it alone. We think that it always happens better in community and with guidance and with support and with unconditional love from a mentor and a group. I think the biggest part of my story that I'm proud of, and we're going to have our husbands on eventually, but I'm really, really proud of my ability to do scary things. The first leap was as becoming out as a medical freedom nurse and questioning something that's so controversial. The next thing that I did was I did a post about being able to speak to people who've passed. I'm a medium and an intuitive, and I did that professionally for about a year. I choose to use it in a different way in my coaching container now, but I was open about that, which brings up all sorts of judgments against me, which is fine. And I continue to do hard things and take risks and be vulnerable and share who I am. And it's not that hard anymore. And to me, that's freedom. Radical self-expression, fully expressing oneself, is freedom. It's what I've always desired. It's what I've looked up to in others. And nurse coaching has really, really given me that. And here's the concept that I want to leave you guys with. I didn't mean for my personal story to turn into some rant about radical self-expression, but here we are. What is possible if you truly, 100%, do not care what any other person thinks of you? Who are you without that? You are a more divinely inspired version of yourself. You are luckier. You are smarter. You are funnier. You have less stress in your body. You have capacity to create whatever it is that you want when you have that freedom. And so perhaps that's part of my why. I think that becoming an entrepreneur, creating your own nurse coaching practice, there's an element of that you have to face. And I get to walk humans through that, through shedding their beliefs about themselves, through scary, coming out posts and different onion layers, right? Like we're shedding different layers and they all feel naked and awful and scary. And yet I see people do them over and over and over again. And that's freaking heroic. It's heroic. I don't know if you guys ever think about, if I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, what would I have done differently? My whole life would have been different. Because having this kind of peace and this kind of confidence in myself, having the lack of fear of what others think, the ability to be a rebel, the ability to be controversial, the ability to have a belief that other people don't share is freedom. And then what does that open up for you as a young person? I can only imagine. It's a completely different life. It's a life fully expressed, a life full of opportunity everywhere that you look. And that's why I love this business. I love our company. I love our clients. I love this profession. This profession is the profession that's going to change medicine. Because you get 100,000 nurses out there who don't give a shit what other people think, who are holistically minded, who know that the system is broken, and they begin to dig in their heels in their organizations, with their coworkers, with their leadership, will be a force for good, a force for our patients, a force for our crumbling system. And had I had a nurse coach when I was going through all of my 3 years of severe health problems and guilt, so much guilt for taking medications, had I had someone there, my life would have been so different. I wouldn't have had to suffer for so freaking long. And there's hundreds of thousands of women, same age, same symptoms out there, not getting the help that they need because the system doesn't know how to help them, and nurse coaches do. So for those of you who aren't sold yet, that was not me trying to sell you, but that was me giving you an intimate view into my human experience and my why. I ask you this question. If we are brave enough to leave the comfort of our cage, all birds learn to fly. And I want you to learn to fly. Do you want to fly? Deep question I'll leave you with. So if you're interested in learning more about nurse coaching, come hang out in our Facebook group, The Successful Nurse Coach. And we have lots of resources. Even if this is something you're just barely interested, if this is something that you are just a little bit curious about, we have so many resources. Let us be a resource for you. Let us be a resource for you wherever you are on your journey, whether it be curiosity, pre-certification, certification, or launching your private practice. We've got you. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next week.